Recent success stories are giving new hope to people who have had spinal cord injuries. So every year, between 250,000 and 500,000 people around the world injure their spinal cords. Nearly half of those injuries happen in car and motorcycle crashes. Joining us this morning to talk about advancements in spinal cord injury treatment is Dr. Kristine Cowley, professor at the University of Manitoba and director of the University Spinal Cord Research Centre. Doctor, good to have you this morning.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So using implantable electrodes controlled by a tablet, researchers in Sweden were able to help 3 people with spinal cord injury stand, walk, ride a bike, kick their legs in a swimming pool. I mean, just incredible stuff. How important is electronic stimulation in improving outlooks for these patients?
It's very important. It's an emerging technology which we think probably holds quite a bit of promise for people going forward with spinal cord injury to, even if it doesn't recover their function completely, it should be able to help them to recover movement below the level of injury, like what you've seen and mentioned in your introduction.
And how does that work exactly?
Well, what they do is they tap into the neural circuitry or the wiring that's still left intact below the level of the spinal cord injury. So they can use that neural circuitry and they stimulate it with electricity and they can activate it. And it's not going to replace, you know, the millisecond by millisecond communication that occurs between the brain and the spinal cord. But what it does do is it activates those circuits that are left below. And then there's certain residual functions that they can activate, like rudimentary stepping movements or kicking while swimming in a pool. And those movements they can then use by supporting it with braces or other devices, and they can have people recover certain movements that they weren't able to have without that stimulation.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. And controlled by a tablet?
Yes, and the reason that they can do that is because of the computer technology that allows them to stimulate certain components of that neural circuitry, and then they can activate it to do different things. And they do that by stimulating different regions of the spinal cord.
It's really just so incredible. The second story we'll highlight comes from Israel, where researchers at Tel Aviv University grew spinal cord implants from human stem cells and used them to help 12 mice, I understand, doctor, with spinal cord injuries to walk again. How much potential does the use of stem cells have in these treatments?
Well, it has potential. It's a lot earlier stages than the electrical stimulation is below the level of injury. And the reason that I say that is because we don't understand quite as much about which pathways we need to connect, or when we do put these implants into tissue, one of the things that we don't really know quite as much about is what will be the long-term effects of putting those cell implants at the site of the injury or just below the injury over the longer term, in terms of how well those cells integrate with the tissue, or if, say, decades after injury, they may continue to grow or start to grow when they aren't intended to. The electrical stimulation therapy is something that's a bit simpler, and if it quits working or it doesn't work out well, they can simply remove that device from the individual. And so if anything unanticipated goes on, it's much easier to remove.
It really is incredible. Dr. Kristine Cowley, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.